Okay. So how do we want to start? Do you want to call this something special or?
This is Welcome to Hell Nightmare starring What the Fuck?
Yep, that's what it is. Starring What the Fuck? Is that me or you? Are you? I'm what and you're the fuck?
The game is What the Fuck.
Oh, okay.
So we're talking about Doki Doki Literature Club. I was just like, my brain was so full after playing this game. I'm like, I have to talk about it. So we're doing it like 2 months later.
I mean, whatever. So the thing was
adults.
Is that, yeah,
when we can do
adulting.
Fucking things.
So when the game came out, I don't remember exactly the date that it came out, but it came out at least a year or so ago.
It's like the end of 2017, I think.
Yeah, so about two years.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a bunch of people play it, and so I was kind of really into it because it was, hot on the scene online and everything. So I went through all the stuff then, and then we waited a while to... It's probably going to pick that up. God damn it. Anyways.
If you want to turn it off, we can.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. We'll probably just cut that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then we played it about a month ago. Or maybe it was 2 months?
2 months, 6 weeks.
So I kind of knew what was going to happen going in, but I was surprised that it hit so hard again.
Yeah.
And it was fun to watch you go through it as well.
Yeah.
Because it hit you, but it definitely hits more in like a quiet way.
Yeah.
Than like a jump, scared kind of thing.
Yeah. No, It's definitely a psychological thing, which is, it's, with horror games today, it's a lot of jump scares, and it's hard to, I think it's because it's just easy. It goes, it plays on your visceral reaction to a thing.
It's being startled.
Yeah,
it's being surprised.
It's
more
triggering
so
your
than
startle reaction.
Yeah.
But to implement something that's like so psychologically horrifying, for lack of a better word, is a lot more work, a lot harder, and a lot harder to do effectively.
Yes. This is much more like a psychological, more like a traumatic-y.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
And that's the thing I was kind of impressed with was, like, I do watch a lot of these, like, horror jump scare games, and, like, the thing is, like, whatever thing is out to kill you.
Oh, yeah.
You get this death screen that, like, freaks the shit out of you because it's loud and in your face.
Right.
And the idea is that you're dying, which is you're killed instantly, which is the height of human phobia. Like, everybody's afraid to die.
Organisms in general, but yes, humans as well, yeah. Like, the idea is to not die.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing about this game is, like, nothing happens to you. Nothing happens to the player.
No.
But for some reason, that's the one that stuck with me and kept me from sleeping at night, rather than
this
one.
Oh, this
was
game
Doki
more
Doki. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the beauty, and that's why I've always been partial to. I don't like horror films at all. They kind of bore the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But psychological horrors, I'm super into in almost I like it too much.
Yeah.
Kind of fashion. Like The Shining is me and my fiance's Christmas movie. We watch it every Christmas. You shouldn't do that, but I do it because it's psychological horror and I love that shit.
Yeah.
Silent Hill 2 has been my top 3 games, period. And I don't think it'll ever move down. Some other game really has to blow it out of the water. But this is a good. It gives you that in a different Japanese fashion. Not even a Japanese fashion, because it doesn't even feel like a super Japanese game. Really, it kind of just feels like they're using that format to get you to be reading everything, which means your full attention is on it, all that type of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, like, I see what you mean, like, it's not in an overplayed way. But like you said while we were playing, it's a real slow burn.
It's a slow burn. Oh my god, it's almost too fucking slow.
Yeah.
Sometimes where you're like, I'm still reading this garbage.
Well, that's the thing, though, is like, because the thing was with playing with me was I knew something happened. I didn't know what. I was definitely not expecting what happened to happen.
Going into the game, you knew something.
Yeah,
okay,
I knew something was up. So it's like, when's the other shoe going to drop? When's the other shoe going to drop? But if you are looking at it from the download page, you're like, oh, this is a cute visual novel game, you're just like...
Although they do throw you off, they do pretty much show their hand because they have to have those safety warnings at the beginning.
That is true.
There's like 3 of them, and it's like, hey, depression, don't. And you're like, okay, well, okay. But they have to do that.
And I think I don't know, maybe if you get like a little bit into it, it's like, oh, it gets a little bit sad and stuff. And then like it hits and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, her Sayori hanging from her, like hanging in her room is rough. Yeah. It's real rough. I remember I think I watched Pro Jared play a little bit of it, and it like blew his fucking, like he like stopped talking for a while watching it. And now I get it, he's a YouTuber and so that's what we're trying to do as well. So he could be hamming it up, he could not be. It's hard to tell, but no matter what, he still got that reaction and then hammed it up from there. It's a big fucking reaction, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is that like you can't not be affected by it unless if you're just like super, this is a video game, unless if you're super detached from what you're playing.
Right.
Which is hard to do.
I think it was Razbowski actually cried.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's fucked up. It's fucked up.
Yeah, it really is. One of the other things I was impressed with was that I called it. I knew what was happening before it happened.
Yeah, I remember.
And it still shocked me.
Yes.
Like I actually went back, like after I got home, I was like, I'm going to listen to my reaction. And it was a lot less than I thought it was, but I felt it was so hard.
And that's what I was saying before we turned this on, or maybe I said it while I was on here, it doesn't matter. I was saying that I was waiting and I was excited to hear you be like shocked or like gasp or whatever, and you didn't.
I did gasp.
You gasped, but it wasn't. From there, it was just like, okay, because you were already calling it beforehand. You were like, she's going to kill herself. Hey, everybody, she's going to, you were calling it. So then when it happened, it was whatever. But then it was from that moment on, it was once again, they jumped back into the slow burn.
Right.
And the slow burn just made you feel uneasy.
Yes.
And it made me feel uneasy as well because I played it through it again and I was like, I gotta play through this again. Ugh.
It probably didn't, the impact it had on me probably didn't telegraph that well through audio. I definitely felt
we could feel it in this room. Where me and me were just like, this is uncomfortable.
But if I wasn't expecting it at all, I might.
Sure.
But then again, though, I mean,
they were kind of,
they were kind of going in that direction.
We're smarter gamers, and we're used to this type of shit. So we're kind of here to look for that stuff, whether we want to or not.
Right. Well, also just like we
weren't like
we know a lot
it.
of. No, they weren't. But I mean, like, we know a lot of people who have these type of problems. We know.
I mean, I have those problems.
Right,
I've had,
same.
Like,
So it's like it's not a huge leap at the point where it's like, because like having depression, like I'm sure anyone with depression has had those days where it just feels like the worst day of your life and you can't stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a huge leap to go from that kind of a day, which is like very well shown in the game, to killing yourself. And I'm just gonna be clear, like I've never been that low, but I've definitely had those days where it's like I'm just like so beside myself. Yeah. And you get into kind of a dark headspace. So for somebody who is like, I feel like Sayori, like just reading the dialogue closely. I did another playthrough of the game myself just to kind of like refresh myself, but also to like pick up on things that I missed.
Sure, because we were doing voices and trying to...
But listening to the dialogue closely, like it's really clear that she, at the point that the game ends, anyway, with Monika messing with her, is just so... Like she's like halfway gone already.
Oh yeah.
Because like she cannot be happy. She's incapable of happiness at that point.
What point do you mean? I'm sorry. That at the very end when she resets it and Monika's gone, Monika gets rid of herself. Is that what you mean?
No. So this is like on the last day you see Sayori alive. That Sunday where you're doing something with either Yuri or Natsuki.
Yes. Oh, and she's acting weird.
Yeah.
And stuff, right?
And she's just like, she's crying constantly, and
this is when she confronts you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even if like
her mind's like made up.
Yeah.
More or
pretty
less
much.
there, and you can say whatever the fuck you want. You can pick whatever dialogue tree you want. Doesn't really matter.
Unless you're like grabbing her hand and taking her to the psych ward,
Right.
like it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty much set. The thing that I do find interesting, that I don't know if they meant this on purpose, but they probably did, is that they're using the love and the familiarity with anime that we all have to make it hit harder. Because even though they did construct all this stuff, it's not really through their construction that it was so good. It's that we all naturally gravitate towards the super innocent, cutesy, dull girl that is in every fucking anime, and we all love her whether she's annoying or not. We're all like, oh well, she's the cutesy girl. She is literally a like specific archetype or stereotype or whatever, and to take that and then fucking hang it that's
something that I wanted to talk about, and that's something that I that really, as I thought about it more, it really impressed me, was that, and I'm probably going to say impressed a lot through this, so just fine. Deal with it. But so it's very much like if you bar the depression warning at the beginning, it, until like that Sunday or maybe the Friday where Sayori's just kind of down, even then I would say until the Sunday, it does very much play like a regular visual novel or like a manga or anime that you've seen a million times before, and it does go with like these archetypes. You've got the tsundere girl, you've got the smart one, you've got the
Japan, and like the friend
one.
Or the one that you grow up with is such a big thing in all these games. I don't know why. Whatever.
And then you've got the prince, or it's usually the prince, but I guess in this case the princess of the class.
Gotcha.
And the thing is, when it's in a manga or anime, like these tropes are like so used because it's basically a choose your own adventure, what do I want to fuck kind of thing. Like at the very least, it's escapism, and at the very most, it's masturbation fodder.
Right.
And there's like nothing really there. They're just giving like the most rudimentary kind of personality traits that everyone's done before put it on something to fantasize about.
Oh, yeah.
But I like what this game does is it kind of says, well, why are they like that? Why is the ditzy girl ditzy? She can't put her clothes on right. She can't wake up on time. She's always hungry. Oh, it's because she has depression.
Right. What if this was real? What if this was an actual person? Why would an actual person be acting like this?
Yeah.
Well, it's because X and Y.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would Yuri be acting like this? Because she's a little bit more of an extreme and a little bit more of like an anime extreme, where I was like, it's fine.
For her,
I see what they're trying to get at, but mainly it's the Sayori punchline, and then she's kind of like following it up for like the climax into Monika.
Yeah, Yuri, I feel like doesn't have as much of a... We don't know as much about her history other than that even in the first act of the game, it's implied that she cuts.
Yes.
Which I feel is not as much a thing in Japan, but does occur. But it might just be one of the... Because that's the thing. That's another thing. Is that in Japan, mental health is really not very well addressed. I think it's getting better, but it's
how we used to be here.
Yeah,
and we're kind of getting better as well.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody's really there, because it's a very young science. But it's so it's interesting to see these situations, and it's like, oh, this is because these issues are going on. But if you like imagine these things going on, like if it were in Japan, like these outcomes could happen because
they have no outlet to seek help or whatever could
so
happen.
Like the girl in your class who like you think is cute because she's shy could just have a whole bunch of fucking home shit that she
Right.
can't talk about.
Right.
And then the Natsuki one, I don't know, did you, I don't know how much you know.
I looked
Okay.
into hers before me and you played. This was when it first came out, and I know it's mainly about like her dad.
Yeah.
And it's about her dad's like it was just physical abuse, and it's like physical abuse and like neglect. Right.
Abuse, physical, verbal, and
Verbal.
neglect
Right.
with her dad, but it also like plays into the tsundere thing. She can't let her guard down.
No, she has
because
to be
she's
tip-top.
constantly in fight mode.
Yeah.
So that like why is this girl who clearly likes you being so standoffish, so guarded, and it makes sense when you kind of put it together. And even Monika, like being like the princess of the class, is kind of like she was manufactured that way.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's not even like, I don't know, that one I have a little bit less of like a thought about, but even that makes sense.
Well, Monika's specifically a thing for the game.
Yeah.
She's not really much of a person. She's specifically a thing for the game to push the game forward and to have an ending to the game. And for them to kind of make their point, which is, I mean, there's a lot of points that they're making, but the one that I find interesting as well is that, well, I'm already starting to lose it, damn it. But these anime tropes and all of them are kind of bananas.
Yeah.
And they're kind of, I don't want to say dumb, but they don't much make sense other than to print money.
Yeah.
And if any of this is used, and I like it in that fashion too, because we don't use this in America because it just doesn't work. Because it's so, you're pretty much watching dolls talk to each other. A lot of anime goes into these tropes, which is just dolls talking to each other, and they want you to believe that they're real people. So like you said, so you can have your masturbation fodder or whatever. And they're like, okay, well, let's see if they actually were. Oh, they'd be fucking mental cases. Why? Because they're just dolls.
Yeah.
Like, they're just fucking, like, broken little shit-ass dolls. Like, they don't have enough personality in any of those anime tropes and stereotypes to make a real anything.
Yeah.
And Monika's there to... excuse me. Monika's there to be like, oh, like... It's almost, I almost feel like it's a Voltron-y kind of thing, where if all of them came together with her, you might actually be able to make, like a real fucking person. But, like, you can't. Everybody's got to be their one note act. Yeah. And in doing so, if they ever gain intelligent enough, they fucking kill themselves. Because they're like, what kind of existence is this?
Yeah.
I like that it gets into that, the issue that I've been having with anime, and I've kind of jumped off of anime, is because it's these constant fucking tropes. Yeah. And they make no sense. Yeah. They make no sense.
Because it's so easy at this point to just be like, this is this one, and this is this one.
Whatever it is, we put a little bit of sex appeal with every character, and kids, and everybody buys it.
And
it's like, well,
each one comes with its different fetish.
Yes.
And one personality trait, so you can pretend they're real, and boom, there you go.
I'm playing another game right now that's a Dark Souls-esque game called Code Vein, and it's an anime Dark Souls game, which is pretty specific. But even that, it's more or less, these are just shell people who you want to fap to. Yeah. And it's like, I don't get it. Like, what the fuck's the staying power here? But people stay with it, man. Yeah. People find their favorite, and they're like, she's my fucking favorite. And I'm like, but why? They don't say nothing. They don't do anything special.
Although I will say, sorry, I've got I don't even have a cold. I just got a cough and a sneeze, but it's not a cold. It's just my body just doesn't want to fucking work. So I'm sorry about all the noises. But I really flip-flopped on who I was backing in the game, because I don't think I really noticed it until in my own playthrough, in our playthrough, if you just skipped to this and didn't want to watch our playthrough, we went 100% on Yuri. Every decision was Yuri and Yuri alone.
She got titties.
Yeah.
That's about it.
But in this playthrough, to differentiate, I did everything 100% Natsuki. Right. And I kind of flip-flopped on who I preferred, because what I found was, and
what fully happens with Natsuki, because we know with Yuri, she's more or less not just, she's not really suicidal, but she's like a masochistic in a trying to release emotions, and so she's a cutter, and that cutter into like a psychosis almost leads her to a path where she ultimately kills herself in like her ultimate climax kind of thing. What's going on with Natsuki?
So it's actually really funny. I'm really glad that we did do 100% Yuri because it makes a lot more sense with the actual storyline in Act 2.
Yeah. Feels like Natsuki doesn't quite connect as well.
No, but it does reveal something really interesting.
Okay.
So what I did was I actually did look. It's funny. Just a little blurb is that like I went so hard into Natsuki that like Monika like reads the poem and is like, this is like really like the kind of thing that Natsuki would like. You're not cheating, are you? Which like from her
like fourth wall standpoint.
Yeah, like from an in-game perspective, it doesn't make any sense. But like,
she's
if
telling
you
like,
know,
yeah.
like you know,
right? Which is funny because we did 100% Yuri, and I don't remember her saying like
because I think it's because we didn't fully know some of the words, so it wasn't like every single answer was Yuri. It's like, oh, maybe this one, and it ended up being one of the other ones. But like,
since this was your second playthrough, you knew exactly which ones would spark.
Well, I did look it up. I was cheating, but that's because I just.
Well, then that makes more sense.
Yeah. Well,
that you were 100%, not 99.
Yeah.
You were 100.
Exactly. So she's like,
okay.
And that kind of worried me that something would happen, but nothing happened. It's
right.
just
it's just a fun little
yeah. But so everything I chose everything as much Natsuki as I possibly could. Mm-hmm. And what happens in the second act is the first day kind of goes like how it would. Mm-hmm. Yuri's like, this poem's it's still right, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Natsuki's like, I really like this poem. I mean, she doesn't say it, but you get the impression, and you read.
Tsundere says it.
Yeah, and you read the manga with her, and the day kind of like goes in her direction. And then the second day, again, I did 100% Natsuki, and the game was like, I showed it to Natsuki, and she's like, yeah, it's all right, I guess. It's kind of disappointing after your last one. And Yuri was like, I love this. So it's like, at that point, it really doesn't matter what you do. Because it's always gonna, because Yuri's obsession overrides what she's actually thinking. So it just, even if like it doesn't kind of narratively make sense because Monika's kind of like altering the script, it makes her go whole hog into you no matter what you do. Okay. At that point, it's like set on wheels and going in one direction.
Gotcha. So it's better to go Yuri just so that way you don't get that trick out of nowhere where you were like, oh, but I want to go with this chick. And it's like, no, you're going with this one now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, I wouldn't say either one is... I feel like going with Yuri narratively makes more sense, but going with Natsuki gives you more of a sense of what's actually going on. Okay. So I wouldn't say one's better or worse. It's just what it is.
Gotcha. So what happens to Natsuki then? What's her end?
That's the thing, is she doesn't actually have an end. So basically, in the first act, you read manga with her, and she gradually warms up to you. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I think I like flip-flopped on, was like seeing her actual personality when she kind of lets her guard on. She's actually very sweet. Mm-hmm. But basically, you make the cupcakes, and you go to school. Monika's like, well, what about Sayori? You go back and you find her dad. And in the second act, the first day, like I said, is with Natsuki. It goes over to Yuri, and then Yuri kills herself like she would in the other timeline. So basically, nothing's ever going to happen to Natsuki. It's always going to be Yuri's going to kill herself. Yeah,
gotcha. Well, she just had like the head to the head neck broken thing.
Oh yeah. That one, if she does die, that's the only thing. So basically, it's like, and I don't know where to think about that, because Natsuki is still there for like after that happens.
Oh yeah.
So
because she comes in and you've been like there all night. or no, you've been all
Yeah.
weekend with like with Yuri's dead body.
Yeah.
And she's the one who like comes and she starts like throwing up and stuff.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, this is another sidebar. I think it's so funny is that when you Google Doki Doki Natsuki, one of the first things that people Google is her throwing up.
Well, it makes sense because it makes sense to me is because once again, you're taking these tropes and she is this set trope. And what would you never see this trope do? What would you never see these dolls do? Grossly throw up through the cracks of their fingers.
I guess.
Like, and that's what makes things a lot more impactful is that, yeah, and I'm going back to the anime thing. We're all one side with the anime. The anime is to make us feel good. Almost, that's all they do, period. Whatever fashion it does, it makes you feel good. That's it. And this one is showing, like, as well as all the psychological stuff, it's also showing that, like, yeah, but...
Here's the reality.
Either here's the reality, or through this lens, things could be terrible, things could be shocking, you know, like, through this juxtaposition, there's a lot to be said here, which people will never look at or use. I like that they picked the anime girl thing more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because they could have easily probably done it in so many other fashions, but to make it in this specific... Because there's got to be how many fucking visual novels, whatever they're called? How many? There's got to be, what, tons?
I think that this is kind of the, like, fallback, but on top of that, like, yeah, it's because for anime, like, it is, like, at this point, a lot of it is just so streamlined into this is the box.
These fucking
nothing
railroads,
goes outside
man.
of it.
Yeah, it's so boring. Recent anime, I can't, it's just so, like, this is the railroad, and we always follow it, and you're like, I could pick up a show, I find out the tropes of each of the, like, the four main characters, and then I can turn it off, because I can close my eyes and tell you what happens.
Right.
Like, so it makes sense to me that when people look up Natsuki, they're looking up the one thing that doesn't obviously doesn't sit well with them, but also it doesn't make sense for somebody to draw this out with this doll person.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, to be like, well, that's fucking... The juxtaposition is too high that, like, we're fascinated with it, I think.
Right. But anyway, going back to the neck break thing, which
Gotcha.
I don't think I explained.
No.
So basically what it is you write a poem basically for Natsuki, and she loves it. You write it for her again, but you're hanging out with Yuri instead, because she basically, like,
grabs you.
bogarts your time. Yeah.
Bogart my time, Yuri.
But, so you hang out with Yuri, and Natsuki's like, why are you hanging out with her? Don't you know this is, like, the only place I feel safe? Don't you know you're the only person I feel safe with?
Oh, shit.
Kind of thing. And, like, you're, like, ruining everything. And,
right. And
like,
you're like, beep bop, boop bop, I'm a computer.
Yeah.
Because that's your fucking character, pretty much.
And then she's, like, her eyes, like, go into, like, those, like, blocky things, and she's crying blood tears. And then she just, like, snaps and goes for you.
Natsuki charges you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's her neck, like, does that breaking snap thing, and then she rushes the screen.
And then what happens? It just says, like, game over or something? Or what?
I don't know if this is... Because I've heard this was an Easter egg. I don't know if this is an Easter egg or just that's what happens after the thing. But what happened for me after it was it goes to the next screen it would have gone to with them, like, talking.
As though, like, nothing happened?
As though nothing happened, but there's an overlay on the screen where it's red, and there are kind of, like, veins coming out the sides, and there are, like, scorchy sounds going on in the background.
That's nice. That's good.
And then it just ends that at one point.
Right.
So that's... If she dies, that's kind of her death.
Okay. It's more or less her is... Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. That's cool. Okay, yeah, so I never actually went to the Natsuki route. I went the Yuri route, and I pretty much gathered what I needed to from that playthrough. What is another point you have on one of your cards? Because I have something, but obviously, if we're talking about Monika and all of her fourth wall breaking, we could go into something like that. Is there anything else that you have?
Well, just to wrap up the whole, like, the difference between them.
Sure.
What I found, because they are... That's one thing that's good about this, is they go with tropes that are so one-dimensional
yes.
that anything else makes them like a whole person practically.
Pretty much, which
but-
is another trick of anime. And
Yeah.
it's like, and we all fall for it.
Yeah. But what it is, and I mean, it's a short game, so it's like you can't expect like a whole like thing.
It's still what? Like,
flesh.
it was still 6 to 8 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, so that's pretty. That's a reasonable game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like to like flesh out like in like
Sure.
detail and like keep up the ruse and to have like you play the game 3 times and
Right.
so it's a lot to pack into it. So I understand why it's not like super deep on like these personalities, but it you do get more than what you get with a lot of anime.
Well, and they don't need to because you're
Yeah.
sold on that. Because
Exactly.
the whole people who play anime, watch anime and play anime are automatically sold on it.
But what I noticed about the difference between, if I'm like thinking of them as real people, Yuri and Natsuki, and they're kind of like directed to be polar opposites, which I didn't really notice until I played Natsuki's route.
Uh-huh.
And that's why they get into that argument.
Yeah.
About their poetry. But yeah, basically they're kind of like polar opposites. And what I noticed was that Yuri externally is sweet, but deep down is judgmental. Natsuki externally is judgmental and deep down is sweet.
Right.
So going between those, it's like you kind of like go. I kind of like went for Yuri, and then it's kind of like, but you kind of a bitch sometimes.
Oh,
but then
yeah,
like
when you
going
hear her
for
talk to-
Yuri or Natsuki, it's like
You're a bitch more often than not.
you're a bitch, but like you're not actually. You're just putting on a face,
Right.
and you're actually really nice, and you're being nice to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I don't know, and that's the thing is like I was like looking online for things, and everybody's like Natsuki is best girl, Natsuki is best
Of
girl. It's
course.
like, what? Why?
Because
But,
she
like-
doesn't fucking stab herself to death
Well-
in climaxing ecstasy
I
and
mean, there's-
staring you in the eye because she's
there's
a nut
that.
job. Yeah.
Um,
So of course she's best girl.
but I mean, like even if you go like through just the first act, or even just like part of it,
She seems to be like the most
it's
chill.
nicer.
Yeah.
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 But I ended up really liking Natsuki by the
Yeah.
end of that.
Yeah.
My other things were
She's just too lolly for me, so she can't be best girl.
that was one random interesting thing
Can't do it.
that
Can't do it.
so there's a little, and this kind of goes, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was just details. Like this game is like so detailed
Mhm.
that's another one of the things that impressed me. It's like every time you go back there's like more details that you're kind of picking out.
Yes.
And it's really well done in that way where it's like
It's made with forethought.
yeah.
Yes.
But
A
one
lot
of the
forethought.
details is so technically speaking,
Mhm.
the canon age of all of these girls is of course 18.
Yeah. Whatever.
So I know, but
Whatever.
like
bullshit.
but
Yeah.
here's the thing
Uh-huh.
is like it's like all of these other high school games, it's like, well, no, they're all 18.
Yeah,
And it's like, I mean, she's a first year, but she's 18.
Right.
It's like
Whatever. Yeah. The first year means what?
15.
15? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
So like, it, like all of the games
Yes.
do that just
Yes.
to like meet that.
We got to sell in America.
Yeah.
So they're all 18. Slap it on there. Who cares?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's funny to think like on a surface level that's how it appears, but then you go down a level and you're like, oh no, it's commenting on that. Like obviously they're not all 18, but it's like, oh, well, they're all 18. Like it's
Yeah.
making fun of it.
Well, and it's making fun of it all the way from the beginning of what they're talking about is that it's bananas
Mhm.
to be into these dolls.
Mhm.
It's bananas in one way or another to truly be into these dolls when they're fucking like 15 and they're still half kids becoming adults. So of course their brains are all screwy and all stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's all this stuff that people idolize instead of actually seeing
Mhm.
in others is all here. You're idolizing all this, but then you're not seeing all like the real stuff, and they're kind of like, yeah, but you know,
And that is a good point.
yeah,
One of the like deeper layers of that I think is it only does with Natsuki. The thing I was thinking is, like, and, like, they do kind of comment on years, like, they don't, but they do. So they don't actually say what grade anybody is in. What they say is, like Natsuki is the youngest and Yuri is the oldest. And, I mean, no matter what age anybody is, the only factual thing you know is that you're the same age as Monika and Sayori, because Sayori is in your class, I think, and Monika was in your class last year. Right. So you three are the same age. So I guess implicitly your brain is inferring that, okay, you're a second year, Natsuki looks younger than you, so she's a first year,
right? And
Yuri is older, so she's a third year.
Right.
But technically, they're all 18. So if we're going on that logic, the fact that you're picking up that she's a first year, Natsuki is a first year because she's so slight and small, that plays into her being neglected and, like, not fed and malnourished, which is a big part of the story because, like,
yes.
If she's 18, if we're going on the assumption that, okay, you're all 18, right, she looks like she's still 15. That's how small she is because she is not getting fed.
Right.
And the game kind of says that, but, like, it kind of drives a point home if you think about it from that perspective, that she's supposed to be 18 and she doesn't even look as old as you. She's super small because she's just not being fed.
Right.
So
that's an interesting thing. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, it makes sense. It does, it without explaining it, it does make sense, but through explanation, it definitely puts a finer point on it that they are using the stereotypes. Well, what can we use the stereotypes for even more? And they do great. It's totally a good idea to not only use the lolly girl who's supposed to be the sweetest, you obviously then make her the meanest. And then, well, what else? Well, if she is supposed to be this age, why the fuck does she look like a lolly? Well, it's good. It's very smart. It's definitely thought into more than just the game. Yeah. There's a lot more floating around that people put into this with the tricks, because this game is ultimately a trick or two. Pretty much this game is a few tricks. They do it great. That totally makes sense with her. I like that. So Yuri's just a big boob chick because she's getting all the foods or something yeah.
I'm just messing. She's just eating so much.
She's eating all
full
of
Natsuki. Shit. She's just full of poop.
That's right. She could never shit.
It all stores up in her boobs.
Yes, that's what it is. God, that is awful. That is awful. Just imagine, like, mushing around shit boobs. Ugh.
Worse than, like, calling them bags of sand. They're bags of shit.
It's bags of sand.
Speaking of Yuri, let's see. Oh, yeah, one thing that I think is interesting about Yuri is that, I don't know that it's so interesting, it's just something that kind of freaks me out, is that you're just sat there all weekend looking at her. You can't actually tell when she dies.
No.
So it's just kind of, there's a clear point where she's probably still alive and a clear point where she's definitely dead.
Yes.
But it's like, you're just looking at her die. You don't know when it happens.
Right. And you just kind of sit there and watch it like a fucking creep. And she sits in her ecstasy looking at you. Yeah. Like a creep. Yeah. I
don't know. That's just a little thing.
Well, it's another, and I liked that they did it like that. First off, you get the shock effect of them being able to time it and do, like, the time change. Yeah. But also to, once again, which is a good part of horror, is you don't have control. Yeah. And they take away your control. Yeah. Many times in this game, through breaking the fourth wall, whatever, they take away your control, which is what scares you, the player. Is like, because nothing's really happening to you, but they keep taking your fucking control away, and you can't stop anything, or things are happening to you, and, like, so that is a definitely, like, a horror thing for video games. So they do well, and I do like that. That I was like, that's definitely one of the more horror sequences is all Yuri stuff. Yeah. And they definitely play it up for, like, flashing the screen with like the crazy eyes and whatnot. Oh, but God. All that's more or less,
that's one of the worst. It's like I was like, it's hard because first of all,
just talking about this is creeping me out. Yeah. Like, I remember the vibe, of it.
Well, I mean,
and I'm tired, so I was like,
yeah.
I'm like,
Well, for me, first of all, like I know it's just a game. It's not even a actual like person on the screen.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon, but like I have trouble with eye contact, so like
Oh, me too.
it's hard for me to like look at that image. But
Yeah.
it's like I was just trying to like figure out like why is it so creepy? It's like they kind of look realistic, but they kind of don't.
Mhm.
And I think that's what it is. But I was trying to figure out like how do they look realistic? It's still like drawn, and it's not even like, I don't know, there's just something about it.
Yeah, they draw it to look more realistic, so it looks more like eyelids and it looks more like eyes when they flash certain things.
I guess, yeah.
And what's the creepiest part about that is that this crazy person with their real eyes are looking at you directly, which is freaky.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a flash, obviously, and they're doll people, and this doll person has real eyes all of a sudden. Like, just that is creepy. And yeah, no, they're definitely spinning the anime thing.
Yeah.
They're using the anime thing highly effective, where we use anime for escapism. And what if? Oh, they got real eyes. That's fucking creepy as shit. Like, I don't like that. Like,
I think the most freaky thing for Yuri, for me, that I just like, I just can't, is right before she kills herself, is like, she does have the crazy eyes and the smile, but like the thing about the crazy eyes is it's the juxtaposition with the smile, but she does that at other points as well. It's how wide and not realistic, but how many real parts there are to the mouth.
Yes.
Like, you're like seeing the teeth and the tongue, and like it's a lot more detailed than this style is.
Right.
And it's very wide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a freaky image. I think that's one of the worst for me in the game.
Interesting.
I don't know why that specifically, but and
yeah,
then
image,
just the
image wise is Sayori for me for sure. And I see the mouth thing. You definitely, I feel like you mentioned that before too while we were playing.
Mm-hmm.
I never picked up. I just picked it up as like they're doing the trope crazy face. They're doing the anime crazy face.
Yeah.
But they're following it up with some real awful shit.
Well, yeah.
I didn't really.
Well, the other thing for me, I think what this is, now that I'm thinking about it, just dawned on me, is because my thinking, my logic when I was playing the game with you was like, if my weight of, because she says something about like cutting off your skin and crawling inside you or something.
Right, yeah.
And my thinking was not that she's going to kill herself. Yeah. My thinking is if we don't say the right thing in this situation, she's going to kill us. Yeah. So I think the crazy face like represents like you don't know what she's going to do. You don't know if you're safe. Okay. And then it goes in a different direction, but it's like there's something like this is a very unsafe situation.
Yeah, homicidal about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the scary thing about me is that I've been in I tend to have in the past attracted more unstable women. Mm-hmm. And it has gotten to points like this where you're like, well, how the fuck is this going to go? And they're giving faces like that. And you're like, that could be anything. Yeah. And I've made out of them, by the skin of my teeth, I've made out of each one being like, oh, okay, I didn't die. But like shit gets real and they don't know what the fuck they're doing because they're bipolar or whatever. Yeah. And like that was the scary part to me is where, because like as I'm watching, I'm like pulling my collar like, ooh, I've been here before. Oh boy. But yeah, you're right. It definitely is not just, you're almost more surprised that she hurts herself than her straight up hurting you. Yes. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's terrifying when you're in a cage with a rabid animal. Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah, like, that's basically
that's
it.
What it is. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Did you ever focus on Sayori? Did you ever do that route?
I never did, and the reason is that
like nothing changes.
Well, I only played through it one more time. Gotcha. I did watch other people play it because I was curious about that. GT Live, I think, went the Sayori route, and for this playthrough, I actually said yes to Sayori, and basically what happens is she's just like, you tell her you love her, and she is still not happy. Right. And she's like, this was supposed to make all these sad feelings go away. Why is this not working?
Right. Because she's broken inside, so then she kills herself.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But for the actual route, it kind of just, I guess it does like highlight more of like the kind of outward. It focuses on these kind of tropey things that can be translated into symptoms of depression. One of the things that I didn't even notice really until watching GT Live play Sayoti's route is that Sayoti's really not put together. Like,
no.
her shirt her shirt buttons are all buttoned in the wrong holes. Her blazer's not even buttoned. Her ribbon's like all messed up, and like
she's like Sailor Moon, right?
Yeah.
It's like no.
Yeah. Well,
Sailor Moon has a whole other fucking thing, but yeah, I know.
But like the thing is, the thing goes for you're like adjusting her blazer or something, and
you're taking care of her.
Yeah, you're taking care of her, but it makes sense in that, like, I mean, the the sleep thing is
the sleep thing?
How because there's the poem where it's like she just wants to sleep forever, and she's constantly oversleeping.
Right.
That kind of like plays into that, where she's just not getting up in time to like properly dress herself.
Right.
But also just like when you're depressed, it's just so much harder to like take care of yourself.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of like a subtext that they're putting in there.
The game did well to, cross their T's and dot their I's by having all those little bits everywhere, not just to have it like a punchline out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
The other thing that happens is like because they're making the posters for the festival, and she's getting crayons or something, and she falls, and you go and get her a cold drink to like put on her head. She bumps her head or something. Again, you're taking care of her.
Right.
So that's kind of the direction that she goes in. But overall, it's I like Sayori. It's not as interesting because nothing happens with that. Like,
well, I mean,
it goes.
She ends her life.
Yeah, it goes in the same direction either way.
Yeah.
So you choosing a different person is not only is it more interesting, but because Sayori is not in Act 2, there's nothing to compare it to.
Right, so you just kind of like pick up and go into Act 2 with these other two people that you're like, why the fuck am I still here? And I see what you're saying. It's a little bit of like a dislocation. Yeah,
so I have seen what happens, but I only did the one playthrough of the two that we didn't go with. I figured I'd go with Natsuki because I would get to see more of what actually happens.
I wonder, but I would gather that more often than not, people all went Yuri just because of the anime, the anime routes that are in our head.
Yeah.
First, I mean, she's the most attractive out of all three of them, and just, that she's the most womanly bodied out of all of them.
Yeah.
And she's super shy. And for some reason, for all like anime fans, super shy is a big thing.
Well, because they're super shy.
So it could be that too. It's probably could just be easily that. But I wonder if more often than not, I wonder what the percentage was. But I wonder how high everybody went Yuri before they went the other ones.
Yeah.
I wonder. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thing.
And also she's like mysterious. You got that kind of thing going on too.
Yeah, in general, it was less the shy thing for me. For me, I tend to go with the ones who are smart.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my deciding factor in that. And that's probably plays into it too.
She got big old titties.
That too.
That's why I picked her. As I was like, well, we're here for dumb shit, right, folks? So go with the titties.
I mean, if you peel it back, it's kind of like, okay, all of these things are manufactured to make her all the more attractive.
And her her route almost is the full first story route, more or less, because it continues past a certain point where Natsuki and Sayori kind of fall off both with theirs, and then you still end up with Yuri.
She's also the one that acts like most like a normal person. Like, I mean, she's shy, but it's like
Yuri, yes.
She's just like, she's being shy and kind of, but she's reasonable, whereas like, this one girl is like, we didn't make cupcakes for you, baka.
Right. Yeah.
Or Sayori, who's just like such a ditz that she can't like, and I don't mean that because like,
she's a hang-around, more or less. Yeah. She's literally like hanging on your legs as you're trying to walk, and she's just like holding, and you're like, Jesus Christ, get off me.
So like, of these three, I'm gonna go with the one that seems the most sane at the time.
First off, isn't annoying me in any capacity. Let's go with that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder how much construction they did to get people to go for her more than anything. Yeah. Especially, and then you got Monika, who's a fucking robot most of the time. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, you can't. There's no option to even go with her.
It's true. So. It's true.
Going with more details. We did Natsuki. We did Yuri. I have note cards.
Note cards.
So I
love the music in this game.
Yes, the music is very good. Actually, I wanted to talk about the music. Was one of the things. I'm sorry, I don't remember who this person is. I might put up the name if I find them again. But somebody came up with a really good observation about this game and the music. Okay. So when you read each of the person's poems, they have a different instrument that goes with them. So it's kind of like to represent that person.
Oh, yes.
So Yuri being like the elegant, bookish type, hers is like a harp and strings or something like that.
Right.
Sayori being a little bit more loosey-goosey is like, it's like I think it's a flute, and then there's like, it's like
I think the flute is
in.
for Natsuki, because it's very
Natsuki's is like a recorder kind of instrument.
Right.
And then it's like got the little like
ting tong people. Yeah. It's very like almost like uber childish.
Yes.
Yes.
And Monika's is just piano.
Yes.
Like piano with nothing else.
Right.
So this person's observation was that, and there's the other thing is like she's like making a big deal about like she's playing the piano and then she plays a piano song for you at the end. So Monika is very linked with a piano. So basically, anytime that piano comes up in the sound, Monika's listening. So if you're listening to the background music when piano is playing, she's listening in on what's going on, even if she's not there. And this is kind of observed when you have that fight between Natsuki and Yuri. It's just them talking. And because they're arguing and making themselves look bad, she's already getting her way. So she doesn't need to listen. So there's no piano in that section.
Okay.
As opposed to when you're having like a like close-up intimate moment with one of the girls, it's always piano music in the background.
Interesting. Because I could see that, but I could also see it as her constructing it.
That's possible, yeah.
Because you pretty much, as much as you have, you don't have any fucking choice in this game, really, most of it. It's pretty much her making you, as all these other puppets, kind of dance and move.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That's what I was going to ask. Like, is there any standout points? But yeah, if there's standout points that piano is there, then yeah, it's either she's watching, she's constructing, whatever it is. It's more about her than it is about what you're seeing. That's great. That's awesome. Right. And also, it's just basic ass theming, and to use theming in a scary way, which cuts through people who play games forever. We all know theming. We all we love theming. I'm crazy for it. Yep. So to make that spooky is great. It's so fucking good.
But they also do a good job with creepifying this like lighthearted music.
Oh yeah. I mean, which is pretty easy, but that's fine. They do it well enough. They pick a right enough like tones when you first start up, and it's like that do 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 do. It's off just enough when it goes when the doodaloo doodaloo or whatever. That little down is off just enough that they go from there and they just kind of pull the strings more and more until the whole thing kind of comes undone. Like when I first started up, I was like, okay, this is creepy music. When I before I watched anything else, I kind of grabbed that. So it wasn't too hidden, but yeah, like it's very well made.
See, that
Very
I
well
didn't
made.
even like really pick up on.
I
It's just like,
absolutely
oh, it's
picked up.
just anime, yay.
Like I heard the noise and like my one eye like half winced, and I was like, nah, I don't like that.
Don't like how
That sounds wrong in a strictly, especially for like Japan. Their stuff is always on point. Like it's all, they don't have a fuck up note in their songs. Like that doesn't happen. At least I don't think in a type of like, you know.
You're talking about in the game, not the title screen?
Well, even the title screen, but they play that song in other points too. But that one song I was talking about, that do 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 do, they're in there. Might just be me. I don't know anything about music.
Like there's a delay in like the syncopation or something.
There's like 3 down notes or whatever, and the one in the middle is just off. It just sounds off, and I'm like, well, that's
maybe
just to my ear. Like
again.
I always listen to it, and I'm like, what the fuck? That's a wrong note, and I immediately go, okay, something bad's gonna happen. I immediately that's where like my mind tracked me on, but also I'm really sensitive to audio shit.
Right.
So,
anyways,
diverge.
What I like is that it's never like one thing that they do. It's
oh yeah, it's so compounded.
Yeah.
Which also fits with all the themes of depression and everything else. It's just constantly compounded. Yes.
I saw another video where they kind of like broke down like a lot of the different things they did, and a lot of it is just like digitizing it in a certain way makes it creepy just because it's an unnatural sound.
Yes.
There's a lot of points where like the notes are, the actual sounds are backwards, which I think is like probably one of the scariest things you could do to just a basic audio track, just because like the there is no way to naturally make that sound in the real world because of the way that
I see what you're saying.
the ways that it sounds like start on a hit and go off.
Trail, yeah.
There aren't any sounds that like
trail into stop.
Yeah.
Trail into stop.
Yeah.
Trail into stop. Yeah, it's no matter what, maybe not no matter what, but almost always people are going to find that unsettling.
Yes.
You're right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's no way to make that unless if you know something's being fucked with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point.
Yes. And then just like the kind of like distort the sound. There are points where like they actually like put it out of key.
Yes.
Like they change the key and then they like hit wrong notes on purpose.
Yes. For sure.
So that's definitely something unsettling, especially since you've been hearing this song for like hours at this point. You really notice it.
So I think that works out great. The repetition and the repetition in the text as well, I think leads to, at least this is how I am with my psychological stuff as well. The constant repetition makes me insane. And I think whether they're using it or not, I think they are, that's what they're using, is to constantly keep playing this fucking song and to constantly keep talking about this inane garbage, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Then someone fucking kills himself. Yeah, they would, because this is just fucking nuts. Like, stop it. Like, it definitely, it gets your nerves up. And it's funny because after playing this, I did play a, I think it was like a Honey Pop a visual novel. And it was the constant music, and it was making me unsettled, where I was like, stop it. Stop the fucking music. Stop this shit. Like, because it's just in this loop, might fucking kill me. Yeah. So. And
for that type of game, it's hard because
sure.
When you're playing like something like a platformer, it's just kind of hanging out in the back, but you're focused on what you're doing.
Well, and it also changes. You go into a house, it changes songs. You come back out, it changes back to the thing, you know?
I was thinking of even like Super Mario World, though. It's just like constant dun, 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 dun.
True.
True. And even like throughout the game, it's just the same song overlaid on different, like with different arrangements.
Right.
But like you're just focused on what you're doing. You're not really focused on the music. You just need something back there to like do something so that you can focus on the game. Whereas when you're playing a visual novel, it's like
that's all you got to focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, fucking man, you got to make a whole goddamn CD for me to read this visual novel.
Like... And that's the hard part about it
sure.
is like unless you're spending a lot on making an entire soundtrack for your 5-hour game, you're just gonna have to loop it.
Yep.
I think this game though, I do like that it's I think it's like at least a minute or so that it's not like the same 5-second loop. It at least gives it like a minute.
No, yeah, it definitely has a minute, and it's not constant, but it definitely gets to a point as well, to your point before, is that you've heard it so much that you stop hearing it almost. And then once they start messing with the tones, it is super unsettling because that's your norm, and all of a sudden now the thing that you weren't even paying attention to came back into the picture. So now you're almost like spooked by the music.
Yeah.
Without it being a jump scare. You're almost spooked by it. Like it's good, it's smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's wild. And it's one of those things too, when I first watched it and it first came out, I was like, how has this not been done before? It just makes sense. Like as you're like, I'm like, this visual novel, whatever, is so ripe for this type of shit. Because they use everything. They use all the stuff that's in a normal fucking visual novel, and then they just add some creep shit to it.
Well, I think that this is kind of like a prime time for it, because
also fourth wall stuff, but yeah.
Well, yeah. Fourth wall stuff is popular. Visual novels are popular. Also, anime is kind of stale and rife for the troping.
Well, first off, that second off, it's anime. I don't know, but I would gather that anime is it's constantly rising in popularity. I don't think it's plateaued yet, and so this is another point where in this rise of popularity, you get a lot of these stale genres where people just pump shit out. Just pump it out, motherfuckers. People eat it up. And it is,
but it's at a stage, especially this particular genre, this either slice of life or harem or
it's pretty much
whatever.
All been done.
Yeah. So like you know it. Even if you don't know it, you basically know it.
You fucking got it. Yeah.
So
and they wear it on their sleeves more or less too.
Yeah. So that's a really that nobody's. I wouldn't say that nobody's done it. Probably nobody's done it in this way, but
yeah, I'm sure other people have tried.
Yeah,
but they made it more of like maybe in the story there's like an actual killer or something like that, and that's not the same as, you know.
Well, I think that might be like where the yandere trope comes from. Is like you have like all these like sweet girls, like let's make one that's fucked up, and if she doesn't get her way, she's gonna kill you.
Yandere, what's that? Sorry.
Yandere, so like there are all these like dere tropes. So tsundere is the main one. Yandere is like.
Is the dere mean a trope?
A dere is like.
Like, does it denote that?
It's kind of like a lovey-dovey attitude. So dere is like to be lovey-dovey.
Gotcha.
And then tsun is to be like standoffish. So tsundere is like standoffish, lovey-dovey. So on the exterior, it's like she acts like she doesn't like you, but deep down she really does.
Right.
Yandere, the yan in yandere is like an illness. So like basically she loves you to the point where she's fucked up in the head.
I've been there before.
So like I think that's kind of where that even comes from, because and now it's its own trope, of course, because it's like, oh, it's subversive. Let's do the subversive thing.
Yes.
That's easy to do.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that was such a big thing, but I could easily see it.
Yeah.
I could easily see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
yeah.
I mean, all the music is amazing.
Yes.
I love it, and I think to me too, for being so audio, I'm an audio learner, and I'm very sensitive to noise. I always have been. Not even like toot my own horn or anything. Most of the time, it fucking sucks to be sensitive to noise.
Yes.
But like, I often am. This game does aces because visually, I ain't looking at shit, and what I'm reading is gobbledygook garbage.
Yeah.
But the music definitely kept me going, and I was like, that's at the very least you're getting a gold star on that music, and then everything else kind of almost follows suit with it. It's really good. It's really good.
Just a couple more, like, because actually one of the things I wanted to go through is, yeah, I think I mentioned I just want to go through, like, details.
Sure.
Just because it's so...
Whatever you want to go through.
It's surprisingly dense for something that, like, feels so light.
Motherfuckers took time to make this. Yeah, you can feel it.
But I think one thing is really interesting about Sayori and just the consistency that's in the game. So Monika tells you about, like, kind of like Sayori's last moments. Like, when you're in that room with her and she's just, like, spouting off dialogue.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She tells you about it. Do you want me to just recap it, or do you want me to look up, like, what does she say?
Oh, I mean, you can just recap it. It's fine. We don't need, like, word for word. If people have played or have any kind of whatever, they're creeped out by what the fuck she's saying. Yeah. They got it.
So, basically what she tells you is that, like, because she doesn't really think things through, Sayori doesn't think things through. So she didn't hang herself right. Oh. So rather than, like, jumping from a high place to, like, make it instant.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I do kind of this, yeah.
She just kind of, like, kicked out the chair, and then she was just, like, hanging there slowly asphyxiating.
Yes.
So basically, she's just, like, clawing at this rope trying to get down until she just dies. Ugh. And that makes it so much worse.
Which is even more fucked up is that's how a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I had that thought, like, as I was leaving, and I was like,
man.
Oh my God.
Whenever you think about movies or whatever, it's people that leg swings out and it swings and kicks the chair underneath them. Yeah, no, they're late. Your feet don't just go blah, 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 and then you're done. No, you're doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta snap your shit.
I mean, especially depending on, like, I hate to get too much in the details.
No, it's fine, whatever.
But, like
it's a spooky
how
podcast.
good of a job did you do with the rope?
Yeah, did you tie it right, too? Because a lot of people do that. Where people, like, think they tie it, and then it breaks, and they fucking fall on the goddamn ground, or whatever.
What I'm thinking is, like, if you do it, like loosely enough where it, like, it's cutting loosely enough where it's like it doesn't, like, strangle you super hard, but not tight enough to let you go. Depending on how much airflow you're getting in or out, it could be there for a long time. Yeah. But yeah, that's another point. It's like, you could, like,
don't hang yourself, folks. That's the moral of this
What you
story.
could do is you could, like, not do a good job tying, injure your neck, paralyze yourself, and live through it. And that's one thing about, and I hate to go off on a whole different tangent, but that's one thing. I read a TED Talk.
Oh, look at you.
I listened to a TED Talk.
I'm so advanced that I read TED Talks.
No, I listened to a TED Talk, and somebody brought up a really good point of, like, there are so many failures that don't really get lucky, in that, like, it was a complete failure. Like, there are people who have, like, just, like, exploded half their face, and they have to live with that now.
Yes. There's so many. And that's like, it's way more than none of us want to think about it, period. And we go out of our way not to think about it. But yeah, if we actually look at it, it's a lot, and it's not all over the place, but it's where you're not looking. Yeah. And it's always kind of that. Yeah, it's a lot of people, man. It's fucked up.
Yeah. And that's
people
really
getting
sad.
stomach pumped for, pills. People people trying to shoot themselves, and they totally live through it. It's fucked up. It's crazy. So that's that. But I thought she was kind of saying that just because she's kind of I thought Monika was saying it just because she's kind of a cunt. And she was kind of being like, here's truth, but here's some, like, awful truth. I hope you feel like garbage.
Yeah, there's kind of an element to that. She's like, oh, but it mostly wasn't your fault.
Right. It's like, bitch,
but
fuck off.
That's the thing, is, like, the game is trying to make you feel like it's your fault. Because,
but you don't,
like,
do anything in this game. Yeah.
Well, no, but, like, the thing is, on that morning, you're like, I could really use help with these cupcakes. I'm not going to go bother Sayori. Fuck her. So you just go to school without her.
Right, but that's not your fucking fault.
Well, okay, I guess it makes... I guess with the stuff with Yuri, it makes a little bit more sense because it's like you're just like carrying whatever and you don't need help. But like to be like, I need help with these cupcakes, but fuck Sayori. Like to not even like check in like, hey, are you up? Can you help me with these? It seems a little weird that you wouldn't like go to her to like have her carry half your shit when you got all this shit to carry.
I don't know about that. Because she's been kind of... Well, okay, so at what point is this cupcake thing carrying at? Is this at, like, you find her
So
dead?
this is when you are leaving your house on that Monday.
So is it the second... Like, the first week's done, and we're on the...
Yeah, we're
okay.
on the second week. You're just leaving your house to go to school for the day. You haven't gone to school yet, where Monika tells you to go back, or whatever.
More or less to be like, hey, where is she? And you have to go, and that's when you find her.
If you did bother to ask her for help, you might have found her a little bit sooner.
Oh. Yeah, that's not your fault, though.
It's not, but it's trying to make you feel like that.
Oh, no, it's trying to make you feel like that. But fuck you, game. Like, once again, I've been there, and it's like, hey, Mike, it ain't this dude's fault. Like, it is not his fault or anything that she's killing herself. It's not.
No.
Like, yeah, things went bad, and maybe he was a dick or whatever, but his dicketry did not make her kill herself.
No.
Like, that's all this other stuff. But yes, I see what she's doing, and she's definitely twisting nails into be like, hey, you could have totally saved her. And now that you say that, I do remember her saying, like, you totally had time, but you didn't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, because while the universe behind her is exploding and all that. Yeah.
But the thing that I think is, like, funny, the thing I think is interesting about that is the consistency with it, because it didn't need to do that, because it's just a little throwaway line. There's, like, if depending on how much dialogue you go, there's like maybe a 10% chance that you see it, if that.
Yeah.
So they go like all into it, because if you look at the picture of her hanging, and you're not looking for this because you're just looking at her face and like the room, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But her fingers, as she's hanging, they're bloody. Yeah. They're all bloody, and that Monika does mention that. If you go back and you look at it, that is the case. And
I don't like it.
So I don't know if you know this about the game, but the game actually creates files. Yeah. So some of the files it creates, we saw one of these in the game, and it's just like it's like MS Paint, like Sayori's face, and she's got like those little hollow eyes.
I do remember this from like a year or so. I was looking up at it, looking through it.
So there are a couple different versions of that picture. There's that where it's just the head.
Okay.
There's when you either confess to her or reject her or whatever. There's a file that pops up called Happy Thoughts. And it's a close-up of her head. You see a stick body, and you see something coming out of the head, which you know later to be a rope.
Right.
But because it's such a simplistic picture, you might not pick up on that.
Right. Also, while you're looking at your files, while you're playing this game, there's that too. But go ahead.
But then there's a third version of that picture, which is the full body. It's the full head, but like a stick figure. And she's hanging, and even in that picture, around the hands are like little blood marks.
Little blood marks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they went all in on that little detail that you didn't even need to know about or necessarily were ever going to know about.
But it makes sense as to why they specifically go into that, and it's to go into this psychological horror. And a big thing in psychological horror is guilt. Is shame, guilt. And that's what she's using, and that's what the game is trying to get you to do. You know, not even all the other fourth wall stuff that we still haven't even fully gotten into.
Oh, yeah.
But it's guilt. And what's more terrifying than you could have said it and you totally didn't. It's totally all your fault, no one else to blame. It's scary as shit. Yeah. No, I didn't realize, but it totally makes sense. And if I would have seen it, I'd been like, yeah, just add it to the pile. Yeah. Just bring it to the back. Add it to the pile.
I'm the worst person ever, and I'm just gonna lay down and cry.
Yep.
I think the only other like big thing that I wanted to get to, was you mentioned about like the Japanese veneer on it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was kind of impressed with how accurate it was, because you see a lot of these things, because this is American made, or
it feels
at
like
least
it.
English speaker made.
Yeah.
But I was actually impressed with how accurate it was, because there's so often you get something that's American made and it's very obviously not made by someone Japanese,
Sure.
because of all of the inaccuracies.
Of course.
So that was something that I was
you were impressed with.
I was impressed with. There are a few little things there that are like, okay, that doesn't make sense, but at the same time, they're there to forward the narrative, so I think they can be forgiven, as opposed to like, well, we're going to our lockers now. It's like, what lockers?
Right. I see what you're saying. But I think it's just another point as to what I'm saying, as to what I felt. It's totally not the case, but it's more of just what I felt.
Mm-hmm.
That, of course, we Americans can make this because we've been so inundated with all of this that, we know front to back what fucking school day is like, at least in anime land.
Yeah.
We know front to back what Anime Japan day is like.
Yeah.
That we don't even have to ever even step foot near Japan, yet I know front to back all of this.
Yeah.
So it's such a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
This whole veneer, this whatever, is such a good Trojan horse to have us already be fucking, I'm already sold. I know this whole thing. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've seen it 12,000 times.
Yeah.
And you're already in it. And as you're in it, you're neck deep already.
Yeah.
Like it's great. Yeah, for sure.
I think one of the things that is another kind of layered thing is there's this like squid joke that happens in the game. Natsuki and Monika are speaking about Natsuki's like,
eating squid.
Eating squid. Monika's like, don't you like fried squid? I think that you of everybody would like fried squid. And Monika's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's because Monika. And like, so Ika means squid.
Of course. So it's an American, not only is it American, but they're going out of their way to like also look into the language and everything.
Right.
That's great.
She's like, well, that joke doesn't make sense in translation. So if you don't know the meaning of that, it's just like, okay, yeah, it was a translation thing. It's kind of funny.
Right.
But the thing is, I thought about it. It's like, no, it doesn't, because the romanized Ika, is not how her name Monika would be partitioned.
Okay.
So it's not Monika, it's Monika.
Oh, okay.
So on the back end, it doesn't make sense either.
Right.
So like if you put it into Japanese, it would also not make sense.
Right.
So basically, this joke just on all levels does not make sense. You would have to know Japanese and English for that to even make a semblance of sense.
And that could just strictly be because they're not Japanese, or it could strictly be that you can just copy and paste. You can just translate all of this and not have to change that for Japanese as well. Maybe could be something like that.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that it's like, no, it doesn't make sense in translation. It also doesn't make sense if you translate it the other way. But
that's interesting.
And but yeah, just like kind of the school day, that you go to a club every day, being a thing.
Is that a thing?
Yes.
Okay. I think so from all the TV shows I watched.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
But it definitely is not in the U.S. It's
no.
Once or twice a week.
Normally
maybe?
It's like once or twice a week. Yeah. Whenever you have a club.
Even like the desks, like it's like so specific. Like we have the kind of like the desks where it's like the top and you've got the little cubby hole right under the desktop. But like all of them have that little hook thing on them, and we don't have that in America.
I didn't even notice the hook thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like a little hook that goes
underneath.
Yeah. And that's
for, like,
for hanging your bag. Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't have that because we carry backpacks.
Right.
So like it's just even like the smallest things. It's like I
They got
felt
it.
kind of immersed.
Well, yeah, I wonder. We haven't really looked into the creators of this. I wonder if they have a background
Yeah, it's
in
possible.
this as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was just something kind of small that I was I was impressed with myself. Maybe there's our like huge glaring
right
mistakes that I'm overlooking, but
a lot of the small stuff you looked into were pretty on point.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I think the biggest part of this game that allows it to transcend itself and it becomes kind of I don't want to say cultural thing, but it becomes big enough that everyone remembers, is the fourth wall breaking.
Yes.
100%. Is her fucking with your game file.
Mm-hmm.
Is her staring directly at you. Is her kind of talking and calling you by your Steam name or whatever name instead of...
I thought that was really interesting. I'm sorry, you can go on, but...
No, go ahead.
So when she called your name up, it was Sweezes.
It was Sweezes.
I don't know if that's your Steam name.
That's
or
my
what.
Steam name.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, my Steam name is Zexanite.
Yeah.
What she pulled was, and I think it's, even if you are like pulling the Steam name, like even doing that is like, whoa, you're like going into it. What she actually pulled was like my username on my computer.
Yes. Yes, she does that too.
And
I was surprised she went my Steam name. I was expecting her to say my name. I was expecting her to say Jake and for me to creep the fuck out. But she said Sweezes, and I was like, ah.
But I know that's still your username,
sure.
so that was still like, oh my god.
Yeah. Still did some things.
But it was funny because I just recently reformatted my computer to like little result. But it doesn't have like what I would normally put in there. It's just kind of like a half. It was like chopped my username in half.
Oh.
And so it's like, do you go by this like gobbledygook name? It's like just fucking really funny.
That's
like,
funny. That's funny.
No, I don't go by that actually.
You can't even fourth wall correctly because I'm
So it's probably best that we went with going on your computer.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I was there's something about it where the idea, it's not even the idea, but also like this forward progression of technology where technology is also looking back at you is scary as fuck.
Yeah.
And people, and the fact that at any time, somebody right now, I have my computer up, that mouse could just be moving by itself and they could just start going through my shit.
Yeah.
Like at any time. Like there's a lot of that kind of unprotected, unsecurity, overreaching thing there as well, where that's frightening.
That definitely, like that, like I've played this game before, I know what to expect, but that she pulled that resource was like, that's a little too much for me.
At the very least, she's still going through your shit to find it. You're like, oh, stop it, don't touch it.
Like creating files is one thing, because it's like, it's somewhere within,
but no, there's a fucking algorithm just in that game that searches your computer there is zero visibility to you, the person sitting at the computer, to know that this is searching your shit. Yeah. And that's terrifying. Not terrifying, but it's definitely fucking frightening.
I think it also gets into like, that's a good conversation and like thing to play on now, because we do have like these concerns with technology, with AI even. Like
AI is coming up.
She's not even really an AI. No. She's just a script reading a dialogue. But she kind of reads like an AI almost.
They try to.
Yeah.
They try to.
And just, I don't know, kind of thinking about those types of things. And like, I don't know, I think the thing I have a lot of anxiety about is like, computer learning, which I think is a great resource in a lot of cases, but also what the fuck, and it's scary.
Oh, absolutely. I forget what I was reading up. I wish I would have looked into it, but they were looking into AI, and they were just like the way in which how we have it now and how they've been looking into it, they've been trying to have it like problem solve and stuff. And AI just doesn't problem solve like us.
Yeah.
Which means that it's most of the time it's ineffective because it just doesn't have the things that we have to make our problem solving, for us to reach a point in the problem. It doesn't have any of those. It has all these other inputs, and there's no physical touch, there's no whatever the fuck. So it is interesting that they're already getting into that, where like this thing is so much different than what we think it's supposed to be. We think it's supposed to be a lot like us.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna have emotions. It's not gonna act like us. It's just going to yes, no, whatever the fuck in its own specific way. It's fucking freaky. We're pretty much making an alien.
Yeah.
We're pretty much like making an alien and being like, act like us, alien. And it's like, no, motherfucker, that ain't gonna work. Or if it does work, it has to be very specific.
That's what I think.
I was listening to that and I was like, that makes sense, but also yikes.
I kind of want to go back to, because the manga Chobits came out in 2003?
Yeah.
And at that
Shout
point...
out to Michelle.
What? At that point, it was so...
Cute?
I mean, it was very cute.
I mean, like, cute to have an android type thing? Is that what you're...
Yeah, but I mean, at that point in our existence in this
early
realm,
2000s, yeah.
Early 2000s, like, it was just something that's so far off, and it's like, this is obviously science fiction. This is never going to happen.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we're at a point now where it's like...
We're on the eve of it now.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we're like, oh shit. Like, it's a common.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it'd be an interesting read now to see, like, the types of...
Is there any more, like, existential dread? Because now we're getting closer to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think ultimately, there's a few points that they're trying to make, or at least trying to invoke emotions in people, and I think that's, like, probably... If I were to think of this on like a drawing board, this would be the point that you want the game to get to. Mm-hmm. You're like, all right, how did I think of this game? Well, I thought about that thing first. Yeah. And then from there, I then deconstructed into all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And it definitely is smart, and it hits a point, like you said, at this time.
Yes.
It is smart for it to come out now. If it came out before, people would be like, oh yeah, AI, but I mean, I guess, and all right. It would still kind of be spooky, but you'd be like, ooh, spooky, and then that would be it. Where this is more like, ooh, it's spooky, and I keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's good. It's very, very good.
Like, are they tracking my data? I don't think this game would track your data. But you never know.
I don't know. I mean, we fucking, everything that we download onto our phones, onto our whatever, first off, I've given it up a long time ago. Everybody has my info. I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. Like, I've been recently...
Here is my address.
Seriously. I've been recently, like, you want my social security number? I don't care, fucking whatever. I've been getting, like, card hacked, or whatever you want to call it, where somebody gets your card number, and they get my social security number. Uh-huh. And they tell me what they're doing with it, and it's normal shit. And I'm like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but they're, and I'm like, whatever, they're just fucking people. They're not like, they're not jacking my $20 that's in my fucking account. Like, I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely like, people are so worried about that. And I get it. If you have a lot, then you have a lot to lose. But like, I don't know, man, I'm a poor American. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. You want to act like me? Cool. Yeah. Have fun acting like a poor white dude. Have fun. You know, like, it is interesting that, you know, we're already doing it to each other, let alone a fucking AI algorithm doing it auto, you know, in almost like a draft format to grab whomever, you know, like, it's wild. Mm-hmm. It's really, really wild.
Yeah.
They do her well. I like her sweet piano thing at the end.
Yeah.
Which is very nice.
I've been singing that with like different lyrics.
Yeah.
For like the past however long since we've played it.
Right. I love, my favorite thing about these types of games too, especially psychological stuff, is it tends to lead more so towards oblivion than it does like spooky, I'm about to die. Yeah. It's more like the existential forever there's nothing.
Yeah.
And that's so up my bag, because that's honestly, more, very much more nihilistic than anything else. Mm-hmm. That's more my go-to, is like, yeah, it's all nothing after this. Who gives a shit? And it's really, really good. It's really, really good. I don't know quite remember where I was going on that, but yeah.
If we go back to details, I think there are a lot of good details with Monika and fourth wall breaking, but in a way that's like you wouldn't notice it until you know how it ends.
You didn't. Yeah,
I definitely
you
didn't.
I mean,
I didn't even pick up on the poems. Like red, green, blue. It's like, what could that mean?
Right. Well, it's funny because I was playing it with you, and so technically it was like my second or maybe third playthrough. So this time I knew everything, and I was trying not to blurt it to you, but I was like, oh no, there's some shit in there.
Yeah.
And you know, all of theirs, even from like the very beginning, it's pretty much telling you, this is what I am.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, okay, but you're saying it in all this gobbledygook, so I can't quite see it. Yeah, hers are always pretty solid.
I think this is I don't know if this is a detail or just an observation, but something I noticed is Monika is the only character that has a normal hair color. So that to me reads as like she's the only one who's a real person. Huh. Because Sayori and Natsuki both have pink hair.
Right.
Yuri has purple hair.
Right.
And the other part I went with was the eyes, which Monika also has a normal eye color.
Okay.
Sayori, who gains sentience at some point, whether that's when you do the Easter egg at the beginning, or you wait till the end, is the only other one to gain sentience, who has normal eye color, but Natsuki's pink eyes and hair, Yuri's purple eyes and hair, like these are like the not real people. I don't know, maybe it's me looking too much into it.
Well, I think it's just more theming.
Yeah.
I think it's just more why not?
Yeah.
To underlie your brain already kind of knows what's going in. And video games do that a lot with a lot of their stuff, is to try and trick the players into being in the headspace. Yeah. That's totally a good idea. I didn't even notice that. And that makes sense. Also, I didn't notice it because anime.
Yeah.
Fucking all the time, anime.
There are a couple of like things that are like they're very buried when you don't know what's happening, but it's super obvious when you do. So she says to you at one point, like, if you have any suggestions for how we can improve the club, let me know. I'm always listening.
Right.
But
that's
I'm
what I
always
meant.
listening.
Well, that's what I meant. Like, every time I heard it, I was like...
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, I'm kind of watching you play as we both are, like, doing the voices, but I'm like, and, like, it's slipping by, which it should.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, she's just, saying whatever, and she's kind of being
because
weird.
that's just a common phrase. Like, I'm always listening.
I guess
like,
it is, but I know what you mean.
I'm always here to listen, or I'm always here to lend my ear.
My ears, my ear's always open, kind of thing. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Double entendre.
There's one part where she's nervous about giving you her poem. And he's like, you sound awfully confident for somebody who feels so unsure. And she's like, I have to sound confident, which you can kind of interpret on your first playthrough as, well, because I'm the president, I have to lead and make an example, where you're not thinking like, I have to sound confident because that's how I was programmed.
Well, also, I have to sound confident or you'll stop playing this game.
I guess, yeah.
That's what I was more what I took it at, is that she's like, I have to because if you turn it off, I'm dead. So
that's
like,
a good point.
There's a lot of like that existential with her as well, which is more so like, if I don't let you turn this off, then I get to live with you.
Yeah.
As soon as you turn it off, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like we all die kind of thing. That's what I more so perceived it as, was her like more of like a survival type thing, which is another way to make it creepy. She's not evil. Not entirely. She definitely has wrong ways of going about things.
Well, I think
it's a lot of survival and a lot of like...
She puts it in like a good way at the end, though. Like, like I know what I was doing, but at the same time, I have the same perspective as you. Right. It's just a game. You're gonna forget about it.
Yeah.
And I mean, thinking of it that way, it's like, yeah, if you're the one with sentience and all these other files are just code, like, why would you care that they die?
Right. We certainly don't.
I mean, to a point. I think it's more like this represents something and it causes a resonance within us. It doesn't mean nothing. It just doesn't mean that, like, somebody actually died.
It doesn't mean life or death.
Yeah.
And that's what you're right. It means something. Yeah.
And that's how she's like seeing it from, is like, oh, it's not like actually killed them. They're just computer things, but I'm real. And so.
And her fall from grace is realizing that she is as much they. She's more them than she is you.
Yeah.
And the fall from grace is like, oh, well, I guess I am just a program kind of thing. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard a little bit, and these was a lot of like wild speculations, maybe wild into, I feel like there was a website that also kind of backed this up.
Mm-hmm.
Did you look into anything about the eye stuff in
the Project Libitina stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, and I should have brushed up on it. What's going on? Do you know?
So what
Are they still doing more of that? Or that
what
like,
it was people are so fucking creative. Because not even like the people who like encoded this stuff, but the people who decoded this stuff is like, how would you even think to do that kind of thing?
Right.
But like the CHR file type is not a real file type. And I thought like, well, maybe it's something that's like encoded to RenPy, because I don't know Python, and I've played around a little bit with RenPy, which is an engine for visual novels.
Okay.
But I don't know, maybe it's a RenPy or Python specific file type.
Okay.
But it's not. So
someone went in, saw that, and they fucked around with it to find.
Yeah, so they put in different file types, and one was like an audio file that like is like compressed into like an image that gives you a QR code that gives you this other code. I don't know. I'm probably matching them all together.
No, but it's something like that. I remember.
Yeah.
It's that trail.
One leads you to a website which talks about Project Libitina. One ends up in an image that shows you what's we can presume is one of the characters. One leads to like a medical profile or something,
okay.
And I forget, there's another, but basically it's giving you all these little like previews of this other, we're assuming, game.
Gotcha. Because that's what I was wondering, because I remember this was probably, like I said, a year and more ago, that was already happening, and people were kind of like, now we're all kind of like watching to see when else they, are they going to throw all their little Easter eggs in?
So the theory is that
or crumbs,
the girls in this game are all actually from that game.
Yes.
And they like migrated over to this one. And the reason that like Monika has sentience is because she had like these human experiments done on her to like gain her this higher level of knowledge.
Right.
So she can see through your screen to you. So even in escaping their game, there's still no escape because of what happened to them in the past. And that's why these characters like also have these like backstories, and Yuri's depressed, or Sayoti's depressed, and all these characters have all
Yuri's
these other
like
things.
Fucking around with a book that has the eye, and then she starts going crazy, and like it it has all that stuff too.
But also like why that resonates with her, like these are like people like being dismembered and experimented on, and she's like, I'm really into it.
Right.
It's like, because that shit was happening to her.
Could be.
Supposedly.
Where we assumed it as, it's something that's turning her on or something like that in like a sick way. And that's what I remember hearing back then too. Yeah.
So it's like another layer to like the fourth wall breaking.
Which is one of the things that I also wrote it off as such, which is, this is how Five Nights at Freddy's is as big as it is. Is by constantly doing this. Never fully giving an answer, and constantly breadcrumbing in different directions.
I think it's really funny to compare the two, because Doki Doki was clearly, they had a vision and they built around it, and they worked and baked in all of these little parts to it to come out with something that's very dense and something that you want to explore.
Yes.
Five Nights at Freddy's started with a simple concept with a few little Easter eggs hidden in. People looked way too much into it, and now it's like, well, now we gotta fulfill this. We gotta scratch this itch that everybody's got, so they just like start throwing like all this shit into it that doesn't make any sense.
He keeps trying. I like that. That's a whole other podcast we could talk about, because I have looked into a lot of that. But it is interesting that through that method, I feel like there was a game or a show or something before it that also did this. I can't remember. Anyways, Five Nights at Freddy's put a finger on it 100%, and whether he meant to or not, the idea of not quite getting an answer, but knowing that there's an answer out there, brings the boys back to the yard fucking all the time. It does it to me. I'm always like, I always go back and I'm always like, oh, look up like fucking theories and stuff, because it's interesting and it's fun, more so in a, I don't know, what if, or not even what if, but like it's fun to explore and make your own conclusions.
I think it was done.
That's huge, and that's a big selling point. Like just in a capitalistic kind of way, fucking that's big.
I think what happened
People
was
own their own stories.
He landed upon something that he didn't expect to get that big.
Oh yeah.
People started taking it in a direction that he was never expecting, but he at least thought about it enough to be like...
He wrote those pictures that were on the wall, and then every once in a while, fucking Golden Freddy would show up, and people were like, what the fuck is that? And,
I'm talking about, like, things down the line, is, he was like, okay, people are picking these things out of it, so I need to put things into it.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have an answer.
No.
It probably doesn't have an answer, but people are going to like try and answer the shit out of it. So I gotta put these things in the game so that somebody writes my story for me, basically.
Well, I mean that, yeah. But also, the reason why everyone hears because they want an answer. So the idea is not to give them the answer, because then they're done. You have to keep giving them some sort of answer, but another question.
Yes.
And that's what keeps people hooked forever. Sitcoms and shit. Not sitcoms, but like long-running shows do shit like that too.
Yes.
Where you just don't quite get that answer and you just can't fucking scratch that goddamn itch. You gotta fucking know.
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy totally does it. And it's not an amazing game, and it also helps that it's a super easy game to play.
Yes.
It super helps that all of it is extremely easy to play, and the jump scares are more silly than they are scary. Like, that all helps too. But like, when I read up about this, the Doki Doki Literature Club stuff, I was like, it's more of that model coming through, which makes sense, because Five Nights at Freddy's is, I don't know how much that dude is worth now, but it's got to be a lot.
Yes.
And it's wild that we haven't seen another, mystery one like this come out. Now, I know he's very specific in that he's working 24/7 for this stuff, but this just lent it to being like, oh, more of this is going to come out. It's not a bad thing. Like, I like it. I hate never getting a fucking answer, but whatever. And then I expected, to be honest, more like this, but I wonder if Five Nights is just kind of cornering the market right now on it. But yeah, so I read that and I was like, that's interesting. We're gonna get more of that stuff going on.
I think the other part of Five Nights at Freddy's being so, the smartness of Five Nights at Freddy's is that they're always pushing something new out. If it's not a game, it's a book, it's this, it's a that.
Yeah. His capitalism style, he's got it down.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think he realized that right away, like, because the
this
first
iron's
game,
hot, don't ever let it go cold.
Yes.
Don't ever let it go cold, yeah.
Because, but the other thing is that it's a very insular game. Yeah. Once you play through it, you're done.
You're pretty much done. Yeah.
There's nothing else to play, as opposed to, like, Doki Doki. You can play through a few times and find more stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I think he like realized, like, oh, once people like stop playing this, that's it. So I got to make another one. Yeah. Another one came out like 3 months later.
Right. Yeah.
And then like another one came out 3 months after that. Yep. So it's like, got to keep making games.
Yeah.
To just keep people on it. I think at this point there's enough space where it's like he's probably made his money in it.
Yeah.
And even if he wants to like make more, people they know the game enough or are invested enough and know that it's a big enough thing that they're gonna want to follow it no matter what. But during that like first year or two, like he had to like constantly make things,
keep churning shit out.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why I that's why I assumed by now
Mm-hmm.
more breadcrumbs would be dropped about that project. Whatever. I was expecting more of that to be dropped, but it could just be that these creative motherfuckers are actually working on a full fucking game.
That's what
and
I'm
they ain't
thinking.
Got time for breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
You know?
That's what I'm thinking is,
which would be cool. Totally cool with that.
Doki Doki is like a very dense game.
It's kind of like a demo for what these guys can do, or these people. I don't know, guys, girls, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What these people can do.
Yes. So I think it's just there hasn't been more because there hasn't been that much more to tell, or like you said, they're just too busy working on it.
Like a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I expected this one to go more of the Five Nights route, and I expected to see more of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't, and it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's good just to have a single thing by itself. It doesn't need to be forever, like a forever running fucking thing. But yeah, so it will be interesting to see from these people. I'll definitely have to research who these guys and gals are and see what they go on to next.
I think it's primarily the one guy, Dan Salvato.
Is it mainly just one guy?
I think it's mainly, but he's got other people working.
Yeah, for all the audio and yeah, there's a lot of other stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so is there any last little tidbits that you really want to talk about with this?
I think the only thing is just like how different it is. So because I think a lot of people, there was a lot of buzz about it, but they didn't know what was actually going into it. And then like shit goes down, shit you weren't really expecting.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm from the perspective of
you're late to the game.
Yeah, I was late to the game.
Right.
So I didn't know exactly what happened, but I've seen thumbnails.
You knew shit's going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it bites a lot less probably now.
Yeah. But it still does, because I think I kind of constructed in my head like what probably is going to happen.
Gotcha.
From like the first little bit of it. So you got girls talking, and you're joining their club, doing poems. My thinking was so like far from what actually happened. I was thinking that this game is going to be, and it's very obvious where the shoe is going to drop. You just don't know how.
Of course.
It's going to be on the festival day. What I thought...
Yes, you kept saying that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's what it's building to.
They kept pointing to it. Also, it's an anime. So, like, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
so, I mean, if you don't have the context of this is supposed to be like a scary or psychological thing...
You know.
You're just like, oh, it's just... Well, even then, like...
There's still
the
hints.
festival day is still like
the climax.
That's exactly.
That's the climax.
Like that's where if it were just any other dating sim, that would be like confession day, or
whatever.
Whatever angle.
Day. Oh my god. I anime. I hate it. I hate it so much. Okay, go ahead.
But so
day.
And that's actually now that we brought it up, that it is a good way to put it, because like you're expecting a confession, and then shit goes completely south.
It's written exactly like one of those fucking novels.
But my thinking was that you're all gonna get to the club, and it's like all dark and shit because they made it all dark and shit, and you're gonna get locked in, and they're either gonna like try and sacrifice you, or like murder you in some way as like part of a ritual type thing.
Right.
And you have to try and like survive your way out of it, or something like that.
And I could see that you're picking, because there's nothing overtly scary going on. It's a lot of subtexty under stuff. So what subtexty, it's very culty stuff, can be very subtexty under stuff until the other shoe drops. Until I see, till I see where you're coming from. And
like the iBook kind of like,
that really caught you?
That kind of caught it. Certain phrasing, like cutting the knife with the raccoon.
Yes.
And that's
Always
referring
hungry.
to something completely different.
But
the way I picked it up was like, is more like a thirst for blood.
Right.
And it kind of sort of is, but it's not in the same way.
No.
And I think I kind of like flubbed on the whole Coyote one, because it's actually a very like telling and sad poem, the one where she's like pulling her happy thoughts out of her head.
Oh yeah, when I read it with you this time, I was like, ooh, like it's but the way that she writes it, and the first time I read it, I didn't pick up that. Also, the first time you play it, you're not focused in. You're thinking about what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
I know something crazy is going to happen.
Yeah.
They had that fucking warning at the beginning. Yeah, this is a poem, but I don't really care because I'm waiting for spookies.
Yeah.
So, poem. Yeah. Spookies.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot of that, whereas the second time you play it or watch it or whatever, you're strictly looking at what is written on those, what is said or whatever, and you're like, oh.
For me, with the Happy Thoughts poem, I think it's called Bottles.
Bottles, yeah. Sounds about right.
Was more like scraping and digging and exploring a cave kind of thing.
Oh.
As opposed to that just being like, no, I'm at the end.
Literally, she's talking about strictly herself and what she does like day in and day out through like a maybe metaphor or
but I picked up on like some of those key words and it was like, oh, this is where the murder happens.
Right. And as well as that fits in with anime stuff.
Yeah.
Is you get culty stuff, or you get somebody who fully turns face and dismembers you.
Yeah.
Because most not anime, but like Japanese horror is either real subtle until it's crazy overt.
Yeah.
Like normally it's like crazy, like we all die.
Well, that's another good point, is that it's a good subversion of even that. Like, you know something's going down, but like you don't really see a lot of suicide in anime. I mean, maybe depending on the genre,
but it's never hugged. It's never looked at in detail and in time.
Yeah.
Normally it's like, because I feel like I've watched an anime or two which have been brutal, and they're very brutal in the sense that like killing is indiscriminate. And just like we're all nothing, kind of more so. So if people are hanging themselves, you're just one of the 12,000 who are hanging themselves.
Yeah.
And then you go on to the next scene. Like I kind of think of Devil Man Crybaby, I think it was on Netflix. Anyways, there's a lot of that where there's just a lot of indiscriminate fucking killing, and there is suicides and stuff on there. But I couldn't tell you. I feel like there was one on there. But I couldn't tell you if it was of any importance because you're busy thinking about all this other crazy shit. To sit and actually focus in on it, which I don't know if it's a more Western thing, but it sure feels like it. Feels like a more Western thing to like sit psychologically and have to be like, like let's stare at it.
Let's stare at this dead body.
Although Silent Hill 2 is made from Japan, and that's all that game is. So I don't know. So
yeah, I could see it either way.
Yeah.
I just think it's something that if it is explored, it's not explored from the standpoint of like this person has psychological trauma or even just a mental illness on its face.
They're doing it because they're so afraid of fucking Cthulhu that it gets in their head and they kill themselves. It's always more of like a dramatized,
or like the
dramatization or something.
The cicadas or the what is the cicadas, I know it's called Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, but I don't remember what it's called in English.
Is it that type of boogeyman kind of thing?
It's a I've only seen like the first few episodes of it. It's a psychological horror, but like basically like this guy, it starts off with this guy is like it almost kind of like the same thing where it's like this harem type thing.
Right.
But these girls are all like fucking psycho and manipulative, and they like basically turn him so much on his head that he just like I think he like claws his own throat out and dies or something.
Right. And
but it's like it's not him.
It's not a quiet like, well, I have to kill myself. It's I gotta claw my fucking throat out and like it's much more that than it is just like a solemn, well, I've been crying my eyes out all day. I guess I'm gonna go upstairs and hang myself awfully, not even well, and like it's a different tone altogether. Same action happening, but different fucking tone.
But also just not a focus on actual like mental health. It's like they had to fuck him up to get to that point, which goes on a little bit in this game, but like
the focus of like a fear of other people making you X and Y, other than the fear of like yourself getting you there. Yeah, for sure.
So even that is kind of a
stuff.
Even that is kind of a subversion of like what we're used to seeing in anime and whatever.
Because you go in there and you're like, that shoe's going to drop, but you know that shoe's going to come from somewhere else. It's not coming from inside these girls to themselves. That's a big thing, is that it's never to you, well, except for Natsuki. It's never to you, it's always to themselves. And you're literally just there to watch, which is even creepier than if they were like, I'm gonna fight you, and then you could be like, oh, game over on your screen, and you look around your room and you go, this is some bullshit, and then and then you disconnect from it. But watching these dolls do it to themselves, I think is really, it's a really good subversion.
That's another good point where if we're talking about horror as a whole, is there is so much of that where it's like in a horror game, because they have to make it like a game. It just gets to a point where you're just trying to get past an obstacle. It's like, I've seen this before, whatever, fuck you, dude.
Even if I'm afraid, you know what, I'm going to cheese you on the geometry, and then I'm going to get by.
Well, even if it's like you have to do that, it's like, okay, I've seen your fucking stupid face 20 times, you're not scary anymore.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Kind of like Blank Dream that we played.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it has that.
Everything like kind of repeats.
Where at a certain point you're like, yeah, no, I got it. Yeah. Fucking spooky game. Fucking stop.
A little bit of that.
Yes.
But with this, because it's set on rails, you only get a reaction to one thing once.
Yes. You can't re-explore something without restarting the whole game. You're on this trajectory. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you don't... Well, it's, once again, you don't have any free will, which is... And this could probably be one of the last things, but, like, it goes back to the fact that it is about depression and anxiety. Yeah. You're always on rails. You can't get off of it. Yeah. And that's the scariest thing. Yeah. Is that you're like, well, I know it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening, and it won't stop happening. Yeah. Those are, like, my biggest nightmares when I was a kid. That was always my biggest nightmares. Was like a loop of something bad happening, and the loop doesn't stop. It just gets louder and louder and louder and louder, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like, it's very much set to that, to where the rails that you're on in and of themselves are fucking depressing. Yeah. Because you cannot stop this roller coaster. Like, you're on it, or this fucking slow tread. And this boat ride. This boat ride, and with depression, you feel like you have no control and you have no input. It's taken over. It's great. It's really, really good. Yeah. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm
glad we played it all in one sitting. If anybody else wants to play, try and play it all in one sitting.
Yeah, I did it.
I tried piecemealing it with my fiance. It doesn't work.
I did it in two. I played on Wednesday and Friday night. And I think even if it's not one sitting, if you're doing it on consecutive days in a very short period of time, that can work. There. Just because like it is a little bit lengthy to do in one sitting. If you can, it's probably the best experience. Yeah. But also, we kind of like skimmed past a lot because we're like, okay, I just want to go to bed.
That's true, but also they're spewing a lot of bullshit.
That's true, but it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of... True. Well, we're also doing voices, but...
if you're by yourself, it's not going to take people as long to read in your head, you know? Yeah.
Or on a shitty fucking computer that stalls every 10 seconds. Yeah. Oh my god, I was on... It was like every 8 beats of the song... It would stall.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god, how'd you... Oh, okay. All right.
Because I wanted to know what happened with... I mean, I could look up, but it's different when you're doing it yourself.
Yeah. Get the full
but I also got to do a few things that I wanted to, like, try out that other people were not doing.
Gotcha.
So what I did was... Okay.
I'm just saying, we got like a minute, and then we should probably pause it there.
Okay. Yeah.
So go fast.
Okay. I'm going fast. just like a few things I wanted to try. Like I wanted to see what happened if you just deleted everybody else.
Okay.
And not somebody.
Which is why you showed me that Easter egg when you came over.
Yeah.
Of just by deleting Monika.
But if you delete other characters, it just shows you that screen without like the context with Sayori. So like she's when you first start up the game, she's like, "What? What's happening?"
Right.
But like if you delete other characters,
it just says
it's just dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the other thing I wanted to try was if you go for 2 girls at once, like you can't do all 3 because you've got 20, so it doesn't divide evenly. But if you go between 2 of them, what happens? And that I might try and experiment a little bit more with, but kind of the way it works is
it seems like it's 3 different rails that you're kind of on more often than not.
I just
and all
to
3
see
of them kind of go back to one rail.
Well, I wanted to see like how the game took it if I was like, well, I want to go with both of them.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder because what it is each word has a point value and a girl likes this word best, but another one likes it for 2 points and the other one only likes it for 1 point. So to kind of orchestrate that is a little, it's too much.
Gotcha.
But I got to do like those things rather than just watching. And also it's a different experience when you're playing it than when you're watching somebody play it.
Oh, for sure. I definitely spooked me out more playing it with you than not. Also, I had enough time for it to go away.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, if you can, try and do it in one setting or at least on consecutive days until you get through it.
Or watch our stuff a few times, the one person who listens to this, and then ask us...
That's me.
And, hey, that's me. Me too. And then come on back and ask us to do more.
Yep.
That'd be great. This has been a fun podcast that we did.
Yeah.
This was great.
Yeah. And I finally got all of this shit that was stuck in my head for a month.
This game
out of
does
my head.
that. This game does that. FNAF does it a little bit too, but this game super does it. Where like you get into a hole and then you got to get out of it. You got to all right, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I definitely had to do that. Where I was like, I'm not looking at that anymore.
Yeah.
I need to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys. I know this was very, very long, but it was fun.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you head down to our Let's Play and hope you're doing good. And I guess if I could leave off on something is if any of this mental health concerns or if any of this stuff like gets to you, just talk to the right people.
Yeah, and join the club. God.
Yeah, I know.
No, yeah, absolutely.
The best thing for your mental health.
Yeah. What's the people who are like, whatever?
Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. Get help, and help is not for wussies or anything like that, which I know is a big concern for a lot of people. Yeah. You're not less than for finding help. No,
it absolutely is not.
It's totally worthwhile, and
it's not worth bearing a burden just to say, I'm a strong person.
The strongest man alive.
No, it doesn't make you any stronger. No. And
trust me, you'll feel stronger afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is strange.
That's the point.
Yeah, which is strange that's how it goes, but absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end it weirdly by saying that I've been Sass.
And I've been Spaz.
Go to hell.